You. It's also my sister's birthday. Okay, so let's get our notes out. And we're actually on the very, very back side of your old note sheet. We're on the very back side, and we're doing part 2, which is all about writing the equations of hyperbolas. Now, your test, you're going to see when we look at the practice test, but the test only has 8 questions. I give you a circle, a parabola, an ellipse, and a hyperbola, and ask you to find all the information, center, vertices, all that. Then there are 4 questions where you have to write the equation of a circle, write the equation of an ellipse, write the equation of a hyperbola. That's it. That's the entire test. So one test question is going to be exactly like these problems here that we are getting started with. So we're going to write the equation of the hyperbola. Hyperbola equations look like this, which you'll recall is exactly the same as an ellipse equation, except that's a minus. Okay? Now, we got to take whatever's given here and figure out what goes where. So let me do a quick sketch. Transverse axis is -1, -1, to 5, -1. Now wait, that's the transverse axis. What does that mean about the hyperbola? Those are the vertices of the hyperbola, right? Transverse joins the vertices. Now, if it's going this way, what letter comes first in our equation? X. Isn't this the x direction? Isn't sideways x? Doesn't x go sideways in a hyperbola? That's how we do it. Now, would you agree the center is in here somewhere? Wouldn't it be right in the middle of those 2 points? So what's the middle of -1 and 5? 2, -1. So that, I can come up here and say x minus 2, y plus 1. Furthermore, I think I know what this number is, because I started at my center and counted forward and backward how many to get those vertices? 3, which means this number has to be a 9. We take the square root of that number and go back and forth. Wait a minute. Did they give me more information? Because I need more information. Oh, they tell me that my conjugate axis has a vertex, or has an endpoint at 2, 3, and 2, -5.
16.
That's, so if I built the box, which of course no one's grading your picture, you don't have to do, but that would be the conjugate axis right there, right? Well, how far up and down did I go to build that box? 4, so this number must be a 16. All right, let's see about the next one. It too is a hyperbola, so it's going to have the same style of equation. The center is at -1, 0. Now, don't be filling anything in up here yet, because you don't know which one's x and which one's y. We got to figure that out. The transverse axis is -1, 5, and -1, -5. Wait a second. Transverse. That means these are the vertices. So y comes first. Remember, transverse is the vertices. Now, if the center is at negative 1, 0, then y minus 0, x plus 1, is that right? You don't actually have to put that 0 in there. You can have plain y squared if you want. What about this number? Do I know this number? I do. What is it? 25. How do we know it's 25? Because we went up and down 5. Now what else did they tell me? They told me the length of the conjugate axis is 8. Now be careful, if the whole thing is 8, then what did we do? We went back and forth 4, so this has to be a 16. All right, one more. We have another hyperbola. And it opens horizontally. Okay, stop. What does that tell me about my equation? That piece of information tells me something. X comes first, right? If it opens horizontally. The center is at 2, negative 3. Okay, that helps me. If the center's at 2, negative 3, what does that mean? X minus 2, y plus 3? The transverse axis is 10 units long. Now, this thing opens horizontally. That means the distance from here to here, all the way across, the transverse axis is 10. So I went forward 5, which means this is a 25, right? The conjugate axis is 16. So I go up and down 8, which means that is a 64. All right, let's get ready for this test. Here we go. Everybody's got a practice test, handed them out a long time ago. Let's find it. Now the practice test has more problems on it than are on the real test. This practice test has twice as many questions, just so we get more practice. The real test has 8 problems, period. This has 2 of everything so that we get more practice. Okay? All right, so we're going to write the equation of the circle with a center here and a radius here. All right, who remembers what the equation of a circle looks like? We're doing practice test number 1, question number 1A. So the center is at -4, 2, and the radius is 6. There's not even any work to show. Right? That's an easy one. That's what the equation of a circle looks like. So in the next one, B, we're also writing the equation of a circle, so we know it's going to look like this. That's what it's going to look like. But this time, they didn't give me the center and the radius. This time, they said we have a diameter whose endpoints are 2, -6 and 4, 6. Now, when you write this equation, you got to have the center. They didn't give me the center. Can I get the center from what they gave me?
Yes.
Yes, because I know that the center will be the midpoint of the diameter. So I find the midpoint by averaging. So what's 2 plus 4? 6 divided by 2, 3. I'm averaging. I'm finding the average. What's negative 6 plus 6? 0. Divided by 2 is still 0. So my midpoint, my center, is 3, 0. Now I need a number over here, and in order to figure that out, I have to know my radius. They didn't tell me. Can I figure it out? Isn't this my radius? So here we go. 3 minus 4. I remember how to find the distance. We got to do 3 minus 4 squared and 0 minus 6 squared. Now, I'm using these 2 points. Could I have used these 2?
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. I just randomly picked those 2. All right, so what have I got? The distance is the square root of 1 plus 36, root 37. So my radius is root 37. What number goes here?
37.
Plane 37. Come on, kids. If that's a 36, the radius is 6, right? This is r squared. So this is r squared. That is our circle. So on the test, there's only one. It's either this one or this one, and my guess is it's that one. Everybody hear me say that? My guess is it's that one. And you're going to write one equation of a circle, one problem. All right, now let's look at the ellipse. The ellipse looks like this. This is what the equation of an ellipse is. Notice it's exactly like the hyperbolas we did at the beginning of the period, except that's a plus sign. Now, before you start panicking, would you look at problem 4 on the practice test? Just look at problem 4. There's an equation of an ellipse. The test is going to have the equation of an ellipse on it. So when you have to write the ellipse, just find the one on the test and write an equation that looks just like that one. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't have to remember that format. It's going to be right there on the test. How do I know number 4 is an ellipse? It talks about major and minor axis. That's an ellipse. Just like when it talks about focal width, I know it's a parabola. When it talks about asymptotes, I know it's a hyperbola. All right, so I'm coming up with an equation like this. What do I know? I know the center is at 4, negative 1. Do I need to worry about the order of these letters in an ellipse? No, because that's a plus sign. Make sure you have the x with the x and the y with the y. No issues. It is stretched vertically. What does that mean? That means it looks like this. So when it tells me that the major axis has a length of 16, that's the y number, and I'm going up and down 8, so that's a 64. Does everybody understand why I put it under y? Stretched vertically. Now the minor axis has a length of 4. So that means I'm going back and forth 2, which means that number is a 4. Is that okay? Now there's another one. Remember, the test only has 1. We just have 2 for extra practice here. So the second one, it's another ellipse. So we know what it looks like. It doesn't give me anything about the center, or does it? Can I figure out the center? They didn't tell me the center. I have 1, 10, and 1, -4, and -2, 3, and 4, 3. So there's my ellipse, sort of. This is the minor axis, and this is the major axis. Can I figure out the center from that? Isn't that the center? That point is the point 1, 3. So x - 1, y - 3. Everybody keeping up? Using just our logic. Can I figure out the bottom numbers? I think so. How far up and down did I count? 7 up and down. So that's a 49 under y. Up and down. I went sideways 3. So that's a 9 under my x. All right, we've already done a couple of these today. Let's see what we've got. This is a hyperbola. The center is -1, 6. It opens vertically. Now that's important, kids, because what does that tell me about my equation? If it opens vertically, what letter has to come first? Y. So this is going to be y - 6 and x + 1. Now it says the transverse axis, which would be this one right here. The transverse axis is 16. What does that tell me?
4 each way. 4 each way.
Wait, hold it.
8.
8 each way, right? 16, 8 each way, which means under y has to be a 64. And then the conjugate axis is 6 each way. So under here has to be a 36. Try to stay awake. It's almost May. All right, one more hyperbola. Here we go. Remember, your ellipse and hyperbola is always equal 1. The equations always equal 1. All right, so what have we got this time? We have a transverse axis at -1, -1, and 3, -1. Now stop right there. That's the transverse axis. So doesn't that mean my hyperbola looks like this? Isn't the center right in here somewhere? Where would that be? Can you figure that out? Well, it's right in the middle of those 2 points. 1, -1. Okay, that's the center. It opens sideways. So x minus 1, y plus 1, does that look okay for the top? What's going through my head? It opens sideways, which means x comes first. Now the conjugate axis has endpoints at 1, 2, and 1, negative 4. All right, can we figure out the denominators?
Under y is 9.
She right?
Negative is 1.
What do you think? Is Olivia right? Everybody understand that? Paris? All right, here we go. Now we're going to parabola. Now parabolas look a little different. Parabola is like question 3. Question 3 is a parabola, so you know what the equation needs to look like. So we have a vertex at 4, 5. That's the vertex. And we have a focus at 4, 7. So somebody back there said it opens up. Would everybody agree with that? Now, if it opens up, then x is squared. I know that's tricky, folks, but you just got to remember it. You just have to remember it. It's a function. X, so it opens up. It's a function, so it's x squared. The vertex is at 4, 5. The only thing missing is that number. Anybody remember how to find that number?
It's 4 of distance.
It's 4 times this distance. Well, what's that distance? 2. So that number's got to be an 8.
8.
Should it be an 8 or a negative 8?
8.
Both? Can you stay awake, sweet pea? All right, we'll try to stay awake a lot. We want to pass this class, people. Okay, so now we got another parabola. So we're going to have another equation that looks just like this. What do we know this time? The focus is at 2, negative 6. Right, that's the focus. Don't put that in the parentheses. That's the focus. And the directrix is y equals negative 2. Whoa, this is a little tricky. Can anybody figure out which way it opens?
It opens down.
Down. Doesn't that make sense to everybody? That this guy opens down?
Because that thing goes below that.
Remember, the parabola is always going to open around its focus. We're in our practice test, guys. We're on the last problem on the back of the front page of the first practice test. All right, if it opens down, I know a couple of things. First of all, I know x is squared, and I know that number's negative if it opens down. Where in the world is my vertex? This is my vertex.
You find the distance.
I heard somebody say it's at 2, negative 4. What do I know about my vertex? Isn't it the same distance to the directrix as it is to the focus? So isn't this going to be right in between the directrix and the focus? So if this is at negative 2 and this is at negative 6, right in the middle would be -4. So my vertex is the point 2, -4. So x minus 2, y plus 4. And Olivia says this is 8. Is she right? Yeah, because what's this distance right here? 2. And that is always 4 times that distance. And we already decided it was negative because it opens down. All right, we just did 8 problems. The test will have only 1 of each. So you'll write 1 parabola, 1 ellipse, 1 hyperbola, 1 circle, okay? The second, or the other half of the test is the next page here. Where you have to give me the information. So I'm going to give you all the equations, and you're going to give me all the information. So let's look at the first one. Number 2, find the center and the radius. Yep, she says you do the blank blank. Remember, we've been quizzing over this for a while. So x squared plus 8x plus blank plus y squared minus 4y plus blank. And then don't forget to move the 6 to the other side and put your blanks. Is that okay? Now we fill in the blanks.
16 and 4.
Anybody besides Olivia know how to do this? It's going to be 16 and 4. Everybody gets 16 and 4. So, because we take half of this and square it. So half of 8 is 4, squared is 16. Half of 4 is 2, squared is 4. Make sure you add both of those numbers to the other side, along with the 6 that you already moved over. So you did that so that you could make this a square. Let's not screw this up. This is going to be x plus 4. And similarly, this one's going to be y minus 2. And it's going to all add up to 26. So your center is -4, 2. And your radius is...
You got it wrong.
What? Square root of 26? Bless you. Thank you. Everybody good on that? Test question. All right, number 3. This is a parabola. Even if you don't recognize the equation, which I hope you do, it talks about focal width. Parabolas are the only thing we talk about the focal width for. So we need our vertex, our focus, our directrix, and our focal width. Remember, vertex and focal width, boom, you got them. What's the vertex? -6, 1. What's the focal width? 24. That number is the focal width. That number is the width of the segment whose endpoints are on the parabola and passes through the focus. That's the focal width. Now, all right, so -6, 1. Which way is it open? Watch it, look at it carefully. Which way is it open? To the right. Very important that you understand that opens to the right. Actually, you don't even need to understand it, you need to memorize it. Y squared is sideways in a parabola. It's different in a hyperbola. I didn't write the rules. The fact that it opens to the right means my focus is right there. And I could tell you that point if I knew that distance. I do know that distance. It's 24 divided by 4. So that distance is actually 6. So my focus, if I go forward 6, is going to be at 0, 1. No one's grading your picture. Don't worry about it. Get the point right. 0, 1. If you go forward 6 for your focus, you're going to come backward 6 for your directrix. And if we come backward 6, we'll be at the line x equals -12, and that is your directrix. That is the equation of your directrix. All right, what shape is the next one? Look at what I'm asking for. What's the next one? This is circle? No. It's an ellipse. I'm asking for the major and the minor axis, so you know that's an ellipse. Where is the center of this ellipse? 3, -1. So in the center blank, and again, the test is going to look just like this. It's going to have some answer blanks. In the center blank, you're going to put 3, -1. In the vertex blank, you got to figure out what your vertices are. So what's this guy tell you to do? 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those points, let me label this. This is 3, -1. So if I go forward 6, I'll be at 9, -1, and -3, -1. Is that okay? So in the blank called vertices, you got 2 points so far, but you actually need 4, because now we're going to go up and down 1. So this is 3, 0, and this is 3, -2. Those points, excuse me, are your vertices. How many are there? 4. 4. Now, the major axis is this one, right? And its length is 12. So you're putting a 12 in the major axis blank. This is the minor axis, and it is 2. That's what you're putting in the minor axis blank. The number 2. Major is 12. Now the foci are always on the major axis. So this is your major axis. We already decided that. So your foci are here somewhere. I don't know where, but I could figure it out if I knew how far this was. That's my center. Everything counts from the center. I need to know how far forward and backward to go. Well, anybody remember how to do that?
36 minus.
Exactly. It's the square root of 36 minus 1. So it's the square root of 35. Now that is not a perfect round number, and I'm not going to panic about that. I'm going to start right here at my center, which is at 3, right? I'm going sideways. So I'm starting at 3. And I am going to add root 35, comma, -1. And then I am going to start at 3 and subtract root 35, comma, -1. We're not going to be confused by that. That is exactly what you did when you put this 9 out here. You started at 3 and added 6. It just so happened that was a perfect number, so you could add them together. But this is 3 plus 6. This is 3 minus 6. I don't know why that's, oh yeah, that's, okay? So we have 3 plus root 35 and 3 minus root 35. Why am I adding it to the x number? Because I'm going sideways. Done. One more problem and this practice test is finished. Not a long test at all, but there's stuff to remember. All right, so now we've got this? What shape is that?
Ellipse.
Hyperbola. Anytime it's asking for asymptotes, don't you know that's hyperbola? That's the only one that's got asymptotes. So where's our center? We always start with that. The center is at 1, 2. What do I have to be careful of with hyperbolas? I gotta watch the order of the letters, right? So X has to go first. So remember, even if X isn't first in the equation, when you write your point, X has to come first. Okay. All right, so I have my center. Which way is this hyperbola going to open? Sideways. So I'm going to start by counting back and forth 2. And I'm going to go up and down 4. And I'm going to connect those points with a box. Is everybody with me so far? Now we got our asymptotes in there, and we've decided that because X comes first, this is the way my hyperbola will open. Would everybody agree with that? Remember, it just touches the box right there at that point. Those 2 points, the red points, are the vertices. So when it says, what are the vertices, that's what you write down. Notice that an ellipse has 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices. Those are the points that make the shape. A hyperbola only has 2 because those are the points that make the shape. This axis right here is called the transverse axis. The transverse axis joins the vertices. Transverse. How long is your transverse axis?
4.
The transverse axis is 4. The one that joins the vertices. See those red points? How far is it from point to point? 4. That's transverse. Now this is your conjugate axis. Your conjugate axis is 8. Because in order to make the box, you counted up and down 4. Now your foci, you know, are here behind your vertices. They're there like that. And I would know what they were if I knew how far to count. And remember, all the counting you do starts at the center. Start at the center. So let's count. How far are we going to count from the center to the focus? Square root of 16 plus 4, which is root 20 or 2 root 5. So you are going to start at your center point and you're going to go forward 2 root 5 and backward 2 root 5. So your center point is at 1. So this one is going to be 1 plus 2 root 5, comma 2. And this one's going to be 1 minus 2 root 5, comma 2. Don't get confused because they're radicals. Start at your center, which is at 1, and add the distance, 2 root 5. Subtract the distance, 1 minus 2 root 5. Again, we're going sideways. So you're going to be adding and subtracting to the x.
And those were the answers.
Those are the answers. Those green things, those are the focus points. That's what goes in the F blank. All right, now we need our asymptotes. Okay. Asymptotes are lines. So what are we going to need to write the equations of our lines? We need a slope and a point for both of them. So what's our slope? Well, go back to the box. You went up how many? 4. Over how many? 2. So your slope is 4 over 2, or 2, and negative 2. All right, let's make sure everybody's got that. Right here's the center. I counted up 4 and over 2 when I built this box. So up 4 over 2 is a slope of 4 over 2, which is 2. Now what point am I going to use when I write my equation? The center, which is 1, 2. Now you're going to write your line however you like to do it. I like point slope personally, so y minus 2 equals 2x minus 1. So there's one of them. And the other one is there are the two equations that you're going to come up with. Either doing y equals mx plus b or doing the point slope form of the line. All right, anybody have a question about that? All right. Well, luckily we have another practice test. So let's get started on this. I can't remember what day your test is. It's either Wednesday or Thursday. I think, or maybe it's Friday. I can't remember. I put it in Power School so you can test and see, check and see. Okay, we ready? Write the equation of the circle with this center and this radius. You better just be able to tell me what that
X
is.
plus 4 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals
100. Remember, when you write the equation of the circle, this is x squared, this is y squared, that's r squared. The square root of that number is the radius. So the radius is 10. That number has to be 100. Easy. The next one is harder. We have a circle, and all we know is that its diameter has these endpoints. And you want to write the equation just like this. So what do?
you add the x's and divide them by 2.
So in other words, we have to find the center. And the center will be the midpoint, which is the average. And how do we find an average? Add and divide by 2. So 2 plus negative 4, what is that? That's negative 2. Divide it by 2. So negative 1. 6 plus 8. 14 divided by 2, 7. Everybody in here knows how to average two things. You add them up and divide by 2. So we're going to find our center by averaging the x's and averaging the y's. So now I have my center, so I know my equation looks like this so far. X plus 1 squared, y minus 7 squared. Now I need my radius. This right here would be the radius, agreed? So I need to find the distance between those 2 points. And the distance is the square root of x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. And don't act confused by that, because they do it in first year algebra, they do it in geometry, and they do it in second year algebra, and we did it at the beginning of the year. That's the distance. So let's do the arithmetic. You will have a calculator on this test. I don't think you really need it, but you'll have it. So if you have trouble subtracting -1 minus -4, you let your calculator do it. 3 squared is 9 plus 1. So that's root 10. This distance is root 10. The radius is root 10. So what goes right here? 10. Root 10 squared, which is 10. All right, let's see if we can get our ellipse problems done. Remember, the test only has 1. I put 2 on here for extra practice, but the test will only have 1 ellipse and 1 circle and 1 everything. There's only 1 of everything. So here's our equation. There's a center at 2, 3. You don't have to draw it. It always helps me to draw it, but you do not have to. There'll be a space, a grid, because you don't have to use it. Huh? Yep, it's going to be -2, -3. It's stretched horizontally. That means it looks like that. So when they tell me that the major axis has a length of 12, that means I'm going to go forward and backward 6, which means that's a 36. And the minor axis has a length of 4. That means I'm going up and down 2, so that's a 4. And that's done, that's easy. All right, so I have another ellipse, one more. Let's see if we can get it done here. The endpoints of the major axis are at -2, 1, and -2, -7. Okay, now that's the major axis. The minor axis, 0, -3, and -4, -3. So it looks like this. From that, can you figure out everything you need to know? We know the center is at -2, -3. So x plus 2, y plus 3. Can we figure out our denominators?
First one's 64, maybe.
64? No?
Maybe 16.
16.
Yes,
How far up and down are we going?
4.
4. If we're going up and down 4, we're going to put a 16 under the Y. Be careful. Make sure you get it under the right letter. Right? And then we're going sideways 2, which means this is a 4. Okay, I got us down as having our test on Friday, because I don't see you Thursday. Okay? Now, tomorrow morning,